Okay, great. This is a public meeting of the Community Foundation of Randolph County to review the Indiana Arts Commission Regional Initiative Grants. This morning's panel will review the Region 5 Fiscal Year 2021 Arts Project Support Grant applications. My name is Paige Sharp and I am the Deputy Director of Programs for the Indiana Arts Commission. Today is Friday, April 24th, 2020, and we are meeting by conference call and streaming live from a webinar. We welcome applicants who may be listening in today and would like to remind you that you are muted for this review. There's no direct contact or conversation about the evaluation and disposition of the applications before, during, or after the panel meeting. And at this time, we would like to ask the panelists and staff to introduce themselves, stating their name, occupation, and where they are from in the state. And Damon, can you introduce yourself?
Certainly. My name is Damon Lincourt. I'm part of the management team at a book printing plant in the west central part of the state, actually, Crawfordsville and West Lafayette.
Great, thank you, Damon. Tricia?
Hi, my name is Tricia Marshall. I am a music educator and theater educator in Allen County.
Thank you. Roberta?
Hi, my name is Roberta Wong. I'm from Marion County, actually Indianapolis, and 30-year veteran for the artist community here, performing artist in dance, formerly and now teaching artist and choreographer.
Great, thank you, Roberta. Ruth? Oh, you're muted, Ruth.
Hi, I'm Ruth Coffey. I'm the Regional Arts Partner for Region 5 and also work at the Randolph County Community Foundation as the Program Officer. Welcome.
Thank you, Ruth. And again, I'm Paige. I'm with the Indiana Arts Commission. I will also be facilitating this panel. I do want to note that we are down 2 panelists who recently had to drop out for personal reasons. So I just want to extend my sincere appreciation to the panels that we do have today to carry us through. And now I would like to go ahead and begin the panel review, and this is how the process will work. I will announce the application we will review and ask the reader to provide their review summary of the application. And once that reader has completed their review, I will ask the other panelists to chime in with any new or additional comments. We are not looking for consensus, just a full evaluation from the different perspectives panelists are bringing to the table today. And at the conclusion of those reviews, then I will ask the panelists to update their score before we then move on to the next application. And we'll do that for every application. I don't believe we have any conflicts of interest. Ruth, do we have any conflicts of interest today?
There are not.
Okay, excellent. Then we won't have to worry about that. Does anybody have any last minute questions before we begin? Kat just came in. All right, great, wonderful. Well, let's go ahead and get started. And our first application is Central Indiana Powwow. And Damon is our reader on this application. Damon, can you provide your comments? You're muted, Damon.
Yes, I know. My cursor takes a long time to travel across 2 monitors. Good morning, everyone. So, if you don't mind, I'll just recap briefly the organizational summary for this particular project. It is the Andersontown Powwow and Indian Market and Education Day. Project projected start 9/10 of 2020 and projected end 9/13. The powwow will foster cultural awareness of Native art, culture, and music to underserved populations through a 2-day artist-in-residence program for elementary and secondary school students, in tandem with a 2-day powwow and Indian market utilizing an interdisciplinary approach encompassing fine arts, culture, dance, music, history, and language. Funds will be used for performers, artists in residence, cultural presenters, art supplies, space rental, and transportation costs. Pardon me one moment while I get into my own comments. Again, it takes a while for this cursor to travel this far. Dun, 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 dun. All right, one moment. I'm trying to pull up my comments and not finding myself in there. I've got to make sure that I am. All right. Forgive me, I might need a little bit of assistance in this one respect. I have the application open. I have their full document. And how do I pull up my own comments? I don't see them as I did while reviewing. Brett, I wonder if you've got
Yeah,
some recommendation you make to me that way.
So if you have the application open,
I have.
they should be under, let me just get to the page here. They should be under each section where you were. So like where the application information is, where they fill that information out. Your comment should be just below that. That tab might not be open though. So you might have to click on it. It says comments potentially. I'll admit that it's been a second since I've been in those applications.
Yeah.
Is
May
there
I
other?
contribute?
Yes,
May I
please.
contribute? Okay. Are you on a MacBook, Damon?
No, I'm not.
Okay, but go ahead and try this. If you go back to dashboard, because I had the same problem. I found that if I went to dashboard and checked the check mark next to my name at the very end on the right.
Right. That should do
Because
it.
if I open the application, it would not give me the comment box.
Right, thank you. Yeah, the comments tab showed 0 comments, but going back into the review status gives me a look at my comments. So thank you for that.
Does that work? Okay, perfect.
Yes, it does. To start with then, with respect to evaluation of the artistic quality dimensions, comments that I had to offer, I was glad to see the addition of 2 new cultural interpreters to this project, because I think that helps to make it a deeper and richer experience, helps to connect the attendees with what can be vastly different cultures, but also to bridge the cultures. Between those interpreters and, as they state in their application, engagement of arts, cultural, and educational organizations, I think that was one of my focuses in this, in the artistic dimension of this, is establishing an effective bridge between cultures to really inform the public. With respect to the community engagement and idea dimensions, the attention to ADA compliance is clear and admirable. I am curious to know how the outreach to those who are homeschooled and in rural schools, which they reference, I would be curious to see a little more detail about how they do that outreach, how they achieve that and get that input. More or less a side note, kind of incidental, this is a project with considerable history. It's been done many years, so I trust entirely that they know what they are doing. It is curious to see the name and the reference to an Indian market. Everywhere else throughout the application, of course, they're using the much more commonly referenced Native American or First American or anything else that one might reference. So that seemed a little bit curious to me to read that in the project description and the project name. And then some comments that I had to offer with respect to the project management. As I said, this is clearly an organization with an established background in history. As such, it seems they have an excellent organizational structure, very detailed timeline for completion of the project, which again reflects that they've done it many times and thought it through quite well. I do want to throw out this possibility. I wonder if it might be enhanced in the future through the addition of perhaps an outreach and accessibility coordinator or advisor. As I said, it's clear that they've shown considerable attention to being ADA compliant, ADA ready. It almost seems like with such a large and diverse public audience engaged, it might make sense to have a person whose reference point is, do we provide sufficient access? Do we provide sufficient outreach into our community to know that we are serving and meeting their needs? Those were my primary comments on this particular project. And I think if anybody has other comments to offer, feel free to unmute yourself. We can have that discussion.
Yeah, Trisha or Roberta? Roberta, go ahead.
Okay, hi. Yes, I just want to preface this that I actually have been a grant panelist before, just to the audience, and just to make sure this is, you know, I have not done the actual organizationals, but I actually thought it was a fantastically, for me, wonderfully written, very thorough, showed the body of experience. Very exciting because they are very excited about what they're doing. I thought it was a vibrant application. The one, riffing off of what Damon was talking about, perhaps considering a small panel that does look at your feedback surveys from before, find out what kind of, including the IDEA considerations, make a panel that, you know, consists of, say, 4 people who are going to say, oh, we've got people with sensory needs, we've got people with still some access problems, because it does get so big on, you know, certain days, and there's going to be timelines to consider because there's many crowds, and just to see if there's any innovative ways they can come up to help solve little bits like that. Overall, extremely strong application in my eyes, really well written. Congratulations. I found it very thorough. I found it a great storytelling, and I really liked the application.
Great, thank you, Roberta. Anything to add, Trisha? No pressure, you don't have to, but go ahead if you do.
I just had the same question about the wording Indian market, and having not had much experience in that area, I didn't add it to my comments, but it did enter my mind.
Great.
And I'd like to echo something that Roberta said, applicable to this group, and I'd say in several of the other applications reviewed, when a group has a considerable history and experience with a given project, and they know what they're doing quite well, but I think that makes it all the more important that you reach beyond the immediately involved group and the usual touch points to get that input so that you have a new view of where you might connect more deeply.
Great, thank you. Go ahead and update your scores, and then we'll move on to the next application. Okay, we'll go ahead and move on unless anybody needs more time. The next application is the Community Foundation of St. Joseph County, and our reader is Tricia. Oh, you're muted, girl.
Yep.
There
Okay.
you go.
Getting used to this. Good morning. I am reading for, yes, the Community Foundation of St. Joseph County, which is, just note, not in this region that we're covering,
Right.
but we're covering out of a kind of a help to help the other area.
Yes, thank you.
They're basically providing 6 different concerts throughout a summer season, late summer season. And they've been at this for, I think it's 11 years. Yeah. So they have a lot of detail, and that's great. It was easy to read through bullet points and things in their application. I felt overall artistically, they offered a wide variety of options for people to take part in. And I also liked the fact that because it was a sequence of events that people could invite people back for subsequent events. And that was one of the comments that I had made. I didn't know through marketing materials if there was something handed out that people could then pass on to others. But I thought that could be something added. Let's move on to IDEA. Because of these happening in a public place, they have obviously already addressed physical needs for people, and they're coordinated with that public facilities. But one thing that they did also make sure that they were supplying was parking spaces adequate for different events. And it seems to me that they're getting very good feedback from their constituents about additional needs that may be coming in. I didn't see anything, and I may have forgotten, but I didn't see anything about hearing. And I know that some public places have been going to having additional hearing help for those who struggle with that. So that was something I wondered about. And the project management section was extremely clear. Again, because they've been at it for so long, I think that they definitely have a hold on that. It is all under, I think I'm thinking of the right one. Let me scroll down. The management is all, yes, taken care of by one staff member. And they gave a lot of detail about her experience. And it looks like this series has been basically developed by her over this decade. So I wondered if it's getting bigger and that she needs help. It doesn't appear that way. Having never attended the event, I don't have any background on that, but it does seem like a big job for one person. So I didn't have anything major to note under that section. Does anyone else have anything to add?
Roberta?
Okay, hi, so it's me again. Okay, yes, I tend to not have a lot of comments if it's wonderful, and again, this one as well I thought was excellent and thorough. I would, under the first part, artistic quality, I would like to have seen that all the feedback data survey was utilized, not just the biggest attended event, to be more inclusive for diversity of audience who might attend the theater or the dance, but not the larger symphony event, or who cannot attend due to the date of the concert or wishing to avoid crowds, the big symphony event. I think all voices could be counted, and I think they probably have mechanisms in place. They seem very organized, very thorough. So we'd like to see all the data counted. Just checking again in conjunction with what Tricia said, actually, any further plans for physical disability adjustments, hearing devices, signed theater performances. If they do have that within the theater company they bring in, you know, next time just mention a detail. I know there's word count to watch out for. There was no mention of the alternate venue plans in case of rain or bad weather, unless I missed that. And because if you're dealing with crowds and you're dealing with free concerts, you just need to have that in place. I'm sure they probably do when, if and when it happens. Under community engagement, IDEA, clear evaluation plan, loved it. Would be helpful to take survey data, all presentations. That's a repeat. Oh yeah, also in case there's considerations for mobility issues for large crowds and the parking as well. Project management, thought was wonderful, thought it was very clear, excellent, and thorough. To Tricia's end, what I was thinking actually was that they probably do have plans in place because they are so experienced. So the question in the actual application asked for just the overview and roles. So they probably just listed what they felt were the primary, and they probably have a large branch, as they were mentioning, of support system and creative management. So I honestly really liked the application. Kudos to the writers. Very thorough, took me through the whole thing, loved it, want to go see it.
Great. Thank you, Roberta. Any other comments?
Yes, now that I've reached my unmute button. Just a couple of comments, because thank you, Tricia and Roberta. Those comments all seemed right on to me as well. It's clear there's a broad audience and broad geographic reach for this foundation. And I note that much of their research on their audience and meeting audience needs is based on two things: surveys, as mentioned, and you mentioned a survey of their largest attended event, and also pulling together the local arts organizations through their Arts Everywhere initiative on a quarterly basis. It seems to me, since you're working with partner arts organizations, it's perhaps a good opportunity to put together some collaborative audience research across those arts organizations, something that might reach beyond survey at particular events. Another point within the project management and major marketing activities, and they are not going to be alone in this respect. Many arts organizations are no doubt going to be affected by the fact that one of their key marketing channels is distribution of the Parks and Arts Department directory and brochures of summer events through the schools. Well, no, that's not going to happen this year. Fortunately, it's also clear that they have other channels: public advertising, direct mail, postcards, etc. So I'm confident that this group can reach the audience they wish to reach, but this group and others will have to begin to consider other channels that they might need to utilize outside of the schools. And then the only other thing that I thought I'd mention with respect to project budget, again, this is a mature organization, mature legacy project, so no doubt they have a good handle on needs and sources of funding. It is perhaps worthwhile to know that they seem to have a single large contribution counted among their cash income. So I assume that that is an already committed amount, since they've included it. It is one of those things there where, again, they might need to in future seek a broader or more diverse sources of funding as a hedge against any possible interruption in such a contribution in future. And that's all.
Great, thank you all. I do want to mention, let's try to avoid talking about the pandemic in any way, although I do respect and understand that comment, and it makes sense. Just because they could delay the project for another year with the IAC. And I think if you want to go ahead and update your scores, that would be great. Thank you. You guys are doing a wonderful job. I so appreciate the thorough nature of your comments. Thank you so much. So let's go ahead and move on to the next application. And unless anyone needs time, go ahead and raise your hand if you do. Otherwise, we'll move on to Duck Creek Center for the Arts, and our reader is Roberta.
Okay, yes, and we're back. Okay. This one, just to be brief, I know we said not to do too much summary, but just to get my mind into it again.
Sure.
Duck Creek Center is, yes, proposing to stage the play The Gentleman from Indiana. And also incredible ideas for voter engagement and turnout in their area. So, okay. Coming up to my comments. Artistic quality. Okay, yes. This one, yes, the purpose or the goal is clear, and past experiences do not apply too much. They've only been technically up for about, I guess, a year and a half or two. In my comment box for artistic quality, to frame this project proposal, this is a relatively new and emerging theater venue with promising future as observed on links to website and social media. Social media was an excellent site. I would say the website, just double check your about page because not everybody does do the social media, and I need to find out as much as possible. Very professional website, but double check your tabs and the information content you're putting in those. Excuse me. Personnel have passion and experience and express awareness of the community, serving needs, collaboration, and artistic merit. Small things, but it is about grant writing, and I have written a few grants and, actually been a grant winner, so I've learned from my mistakes. Please expand on shortened terms like Still Tarkington. For example, I had to double check myself and go, oh wait, James Still, right, with Tarkington. Just remember your reader may not have information or familiarity with your subject matter, and just explain away, tell your story, make it a good one, so that it's very clear what you're talking about. You can mention the Community Foundation and the NEA support for Mockingbird, which was in your materials, to give weight to this section, artistic quality of the application. Those things, support of IAC, Community Foundation, and NEA for that single project, I think is a fantastic indicator of your artistic quality. So go ahead and throw that in. Small word count on that to add. Question that came up. Have congressional candidates actually committed to attending the forum, or is there another structure to the forum? So I would say please add details about the forum. The idea sounds great, but I would be, well, what are you actually going to do with that? Is it like a town hall? Is it actually going to have the candidates there? Because I would think that would be interesting to get the, speaking engagements in your part of the area. Again, for artistic quality, will there be auditions or invited artists? We just didn't answer the question thoroughly. Question 2 says, tell us about the artists and how they will be selected. You did have a line about that at the end, but it really, you could expound on that just a couple more sentences even to give me more of an idea of how you're going to choose for this project. In my artist mind, I do have faith that you absolutely know what you're doing, but should be a little more explicitly stated to answer the question. As expenses do not include paying, you did not include paying the actors nor the crew, which is a mid-size or considerable 19 adults and 2 children. So in that idea of selection, you could mention if the actors are non-professionals or if they will volunteer, or mention perhaps this is the same process that you used in previous productions. So there's a historical context of operations existing. Just a little more information to clarify. Under community engagement, IDEA. had some suggestions on this. This is the 4 parts. So under A, identifying your target populations. Please expand on your definition of culturally underserved. We can never assume that one person's use of the term is the same as, you know, anybody else, especially when you've got panelists considering for the state, you know, commission, as well as some specifics about the target population, including perhaps race, economics, diversity, age, etc. I love your passion about getting them on board, about getting them engaged in voting, but who are we talking to? So as the target population is not clearly identified for me. Question, and I know this is not, okay, Elwood is approximately within 45 minutes of Carmel and Fishers, and even less than towards Fishers, which have robust arts districts and venues. So they contain rich artistic events, but are somewhat distant. So do you mean that there is a lack of resources, venues, or diversity of arts presentations locally to you, or an inability to travel, or a community wish for local cultural and artistic offerings? What do you mean by culturally underserved? Oh, here's another tip for grant writing. Do you live in Elwood? Because this would help prove the speaker's understanding of the population and its needs and economics. You know, have you lived there? Are you raising children there? Is this something that is why this voting process is so important for you and getting people engaged? While not gathered input from the community, you know, the first step of IDEA ladder is opportunities for community. So the strength of this proposal to me lies in the alignment of the applicant's strengths and the applicant's passion and purpose to create this valuable opportunity for the community. So regarding, say, after this whole event is done, for your next grant, you should, of course, reference some legacy of your feedback surveys, etc. This is the new one. So you are creating opportunity, and that's the first part of the IDEA ladder. So input from the community for development seems to only come from data and statistics, which are helpful, but only indirectly engaged community input. It also focused primarily on one aspect, which is voting, so I don't get details of the population, the age, the economics, etc. Also, please credit the source of these statistics so that I know, you know, where that statement comes from. And then define who are the community you seek to serve. Engagement and evaluation involving the community have excellent intent. It's really great. I thought the well thought out timeline and details, but this should, for me, go under the project management section. So excellently written section of your narrative, but you've just used your word count, and we'd like to know more about your population targeted. So I would shift this to your timeline, your project management. Also for this section, because it is IDEA, I felt this section did not clearly define the IDEA specifics for the targeted population. It talked more about the intent of the project. It was very passionate about the project. It did not speak about the people, actual people being served. For example, voters from every demographic will be encouraged to participate. So my question became, does Elwood have a wide demographic? Who are they? How would they gain access? So again, please answer the questions, explain in alignment with the IDEA tenets. Am I okay? I'm hearing some feedback. Okay. Under C, measure of success for this project. So sorry guys, this is a little specific. As lead reader, kind of got into it. All right. Measure of success for this project to me is not well defined, because we are talking about measure of success for the impact of the project. For example, is it the quantity of attendees you're looking for the productions? Is it the level activity of engagement at the attended forum? Are you looking for people to just get really into it? And, you know, or is it the quality of the comments you start to receive? Is it the quantity of the first-time voters you registered? So a little more in the methods so that it speaks to you. Obviously, you have stated you have a body of experience, but I don't know you. So Actual methods, not fully explained. However, concepts presented reflect a body of experience that likely predicts attainability of engagement. Projected participation figures, you wrote artists were a 0 count. So I've counted, 21 actors, costume, hair, makeup that you listed in cash expenses. Prop sets may already exist, so maybe there's no artist directly involved, but just watch your, dot your I's, cross your T's, right? Under project management, just a few comments on this one. Staffing overview does seem sparse. And however, given the experience of the 2 staff listed, the project will likely succeed. I need to have faith, as a reader that this will go if we're going to grant. Excuse me, I would like to know if other artists are involved, volunteers, anyone else, as an overview. So I believe in this section you can include a little more into that, is the village helping you out here? Do you have more people? The project manager has definite theater directing experience, but no specific project management experience was actually listed, was actually stated. So we do ask for overviews and definition of roles. And we need to have faith that this project manager, yes, has theater directing experience. I will believe, she can get it done, but maybe next time list more experience for the actual project management position. Question again is, okay, no in-kind donations. For me, at 30 years in the business, historically smaller theaters include in-kind somewhere. But the project could very well be achievable given the applicant's stated skill sets and theater success level, meaning again, the IEC, the Community Foundation, and the NEA supported work. I believe the strength of this application in the section aligns that they are aligning their strengths and capabilities to project intentions. That is a very wise thing to do. And it comes out in your writing, and that's fabulous. I believe you know what you're doing. You chose what you know and what you're good at. Under the $2,400 in admission fees, I could have used a breakdown. Breakdown would have been helpful, and a mention of how they attained this figure. So just elaborate another half a sentence. So I know exactly what you're talking about, because admission fees, of course, are never guaranteed. So one final on this section, the actors, the crew did not get paid. Count the actors and crew as a donated in kind. So count maybe the artists as an in-kind donation. Just so it's addressed. And okay, sorry that was long, guys. That was it. Sounds like a really interesting project. Love the engagement about the voter registration, civics refresher, candidate forum. Obviously, 2 passions you love. As an artist myself, I believe this can fly from those, human aspects and the experience contained in the personnel. All right, I'm done.
Great, very thorough. Thank you, Roberta. Damon or Tricia, did you have anything to add?
I've unmuted, so I'll go ahead and add a couple of things. It was an excellent analysis, and especially valuable to offer them guidance on grant writing, something I'm really not in a position to do for them myself. Your point is very well made about the need to ensure that they have community input to the artistic mission and vision. It is an exciting and interesting project in that they clearly have a focus on their community impact, but that assumes that they have hit on the right idea based on community input and community needs. They referenced their use of the Elwood Opera House. I'd be anxious to hear more, though, about that venue and accessibility and history, all manner of things regarding their venue. I also noted artist engagement at a number of 0 when we know there's got to be a cast. Likewise, the in-kind contributions, I would fully expect that there must be in-kind contributions as well. Seems like there was something else that was worthwhile. Oh, in one respect, respectfully, Roberta, I would differ a little bit with respect to their measure of success for their impact. Probably just my business background that I do like the fact that they are focusing on numerics, really, for the success and impact of their project, counting new voter registrations, assessing attendance, comparing voter participation, et cetera. Granted, some of these things are influenced by factors that are well beyond this single project, so might in fact not be the most accurate descriptors, but it is encouraging to see that they are selecting some dimensions that have true numeric value that can be compared that way. That's all.
Great. Anything else?
I also wanted to note that artists sometimes can be misleading, but we want to make sure that even your backstage crew, your hair and makeup, your set designers, everyone that's involved in any way is part of that artist number. So seeing that 0, I was like, whoa, what's going on? But the underneath, there was a nice explanation. So I said in my comments, you know, that number should be at least 27 by my count. So, and I would assume more than that. Something also to consider is the way that the grant is stated, those in-kind donations that weren't included could help you to ask for more grant money. So put that into your future grant applications. And I also noted that maybe asking someone who's been at it for a while to review your application before it's sent in could help you to catch some of those small things. And that's all.
Excellent.
There's one other small note I wanted to offer, and again, sorry, this is the business side of me coming out. And I recognize that many organizations that are largely volunteer don't necessarily have solid accounting staff or solid accounting practices. On your balance sheet, something for you to look at under fixed assets, your property and equipment, you have the same value previous year and current year. Any good business, any good organization should also consider depreciation. So in truth, your assets don't retain that value.
Wow, great. Wow. Very helpful feedback. Thank you guys. And if there's nothing else, then go ahead and update your scores. Feel free to go ahead and queue up the next application. Oh, you're muted, Tricia, if you had something to say. Okay. Maybe she was talking to somebody else. Gotcha. Well, let's go ahead and move forward unless anybody needs more time. Certainly signal if you do. We're moving forward to the next application, Chanticleer Quartet. And our reader for this application is Damon.
Perhaps someday I'll get the hang of 2 monitors, but today is not that day.
That's okay.
All right. So again, just a brief as possible project summary recap. The Chanticleer String Quartet and pianist William Foster McDaniel will perform 8 concerts in its Summer Music Festival, and Carolyn Klemper of Green, violinist in the Chanticleer String Quartet, will perform 30 children's programs throughout the year in elementary schools and other institutions. It's a project with a 43-year history, apparently, and that's admirable. There's no two ways around that. So it's also clear that they have great experience within their community, great experience with this particular project and delivery. So let's see here. getting into some of my comments. Oh, heavens. If I could only see my cursor. There we are. Under artistic quality, the goals of the project clear. If applicable, does the applicant clearly the applicant has past experience to inform this project. I would also say, though, that it is a broad project in its scope, and that you've got concerts to the community as well as numerous small group interactions with your violinists. So it is quite a mixed project in that respect, as opposed to focusing on the concert series or the outreach to schools. Process of selecting participating artists demonstrate a clear effort to create high quality experience. And I have every reason to believe that is also true. Decisions made by members of the Chanticleer String Quartet. And the artistic example, well, basically you have a very skilled core of people, and also success in keeping it fresh with your association with Earlham. Project description and artistic documentation demonstrate the project will provide a meaningful, impactful, and quality artistic and authentic experience. There is no arguing with the quality of artistic experience in the very classic choices for the concert series. This is an area, though, that I would hope the quartet does explore with both with the staff and students at Earlham and with their community, evolution of their repertoire, because it's a great impact for your audience and for the development of the community to include these very classic works, but to also pair them occasionally with something that is outside the typical classical repertoire. It shows the breadth of what's available. That touches a bit in the next dimension, community engagement and idea. I think the community, they have a pretty good handle on the community that they are engaging. Again, there's certainly great history. I think it's very admirable too that they've chosen to reach out and engage through the Richmond State Hospital, retirement communities, aid programs for individuals formerly incarcerated, veterans. So they mentioned the program Open Up Your Art. I think that's something that they've embraced, not just in that particular program for veterans, but across the board, they seem to have embraced it, and that's very encouraging. Does the applicant have intentional idea strategies to increase access, address barriers, the diversity of participants? I'll confess, I don't see where they have shown a process for evaluating and growing and changing their engagement and their mix to the community. Nonetheless, it is also still apparent from the great number of people that they're engaging, the number of different groups and the number of different venues, that they're effective at having a broad reach across community groups. So they should perhaps then consider, and perhaps this goes along with the idea of broadening the repertoire, they should consider the means by which they can gather further information about their community, what the needs, expectations, and in particular underserved portions of the community are, to ensure that they're meeting those needs. And moving into project management, staffing to carry out the project. The lead project manager, Carolyn Klemperer-Green, clearly has considerable experience. Again, the help and assistance and participation from those in Earlham College is no doubt very helpful to making sure that they've crossed all the T's, dotted all the I's, etc. Many references made to many volunteers. It would be helpful to have a better idea of the project team and the project structure. If Carolyn Klemperer-Green is the primary driving force, specifically what is she doing, but where is she pulling in the expertise? She mentioned the controller, but what other expertise is she able to pull in from Earlham College? And what role do other volunteers play? Are they responsible for marketing? Are they responsible for logistics, etc.? And when you have a single primary lead on a given project, and granted one with a great deal of experience, the advantage is that this person knows what they're doing. The disadvantage is no one else knows what this person might need. So the more you can do to enlarge and broaden your project management staff, ultimately the better it might suit you. Looking through my paperwork, see if I wrote any marginal notes that are worth comment. This is another instance where the mention of admission fees in the cash income, it would, as with some of the other grant applications, even in that respect, it would be helpful to have that broken down a bit and to know if it is validated by past experience. The timeline laid out is detailed and effective, and as I said, nice to see how far across the community they're reaching. And then basically, I think that's all I had to offer in terms of comments.
Great, thank you, Damon. Does anybody else have anything to add? Anything new? Roberta?
Okay, hi, back on. So this is for Chanticleer, and I'm coming for the lens of an artist myself and someone who's also been in the business a long time. What I'm so valuing in this panel, and Damon, I love your comments for this reason, you bring a perspective that is very important for those of us artists who are writing these grants, and so this is for Chanticleer. I'm finding that the representatives on this panel exactly represent what you're going to be finding in your communities when you're reaching for sponsorships, when you're reaching for individual donations, when you're approaching a corporation. This is how, say, a business person thinks. This is how someone who balances books thinks. This is how somebody who understands the numeric data much more than I do as an artist thinks. So Damon, all of your stuff is just really valuable to me because it also shows, Chanticleer, what other people are reading from your writing. And that will go back to my review of your application to me was fantastic. Coming from my lens, I understood what you were saying, but that's because I speak your language. So, and the first part, just really quick, I love this narrative, the artistic quality, your project description. It shows who you are, what you value, your genuine love for your subject, your generosity, your range of outreach. Everything was in it for me. Your almost, not nerdiness, but your specifics and details, your excitement about it, everything to me was perfectly relayed. But people in the community are not going to all think the way, artists will, because we come from a different mechanism sometimes, and that's not a better mechanism, it's just a different one. So this is so valuable, listening to all these other comments of the panelists as well, and I'm glad I'm on this particular panel. To go through more with your application, I want to meet Caroline Kempler-Green. I think she must be fantastic. And I literally didn't have anything else because it was all positive. I thought you were very thorough. You took me through a whole story of landscape that I'm just like, you have done a lot of activity. You haven't just stayed with one thing that you know, in my eyes. You've expanded to anybody you can reach. Love the thing with the Mozart, and the kids, and love the stories you told about the audience reactions, and how it really gave, your application really gave specifics and how it changed people's lives. Because as an artist, we all know that happens constantly, but we sometimes don't say it enough. So it was great how you embedded it. It read really well. It took me through the entire landscape, and I didn't want to stop reading. So that's my take on it. Again, what's great, it's just valuable with all these different types of comments to understand that this is what's also in our community. These are the people you also want to engage, possibly for sponsorships and things. And this is how they think. So that even if you think you might be clear on your applications, there are definitely things we can do to explain more, address more, or put it in a different way so that it's clear that it stands out to the people who are reading it, or the people you're approaching to when you ask for grants and things and sponsorships. So it's just a really valuable experience here. So thank you, Damon, and all of this. That's it.
Thank you, Roberta. Tricia, did you have something to add?
Just quickly, this one really hit me as a musician and actress. I saw this tie-in for the children, especially the pictures of them in the little Mozart wigs. I mean, I just thought that was adorable. And it really helped me to bring, like, it wasn't just wordy, it brought that visual element to me. So I think it's worthy to note, we haven't really talked about much, how much those images that we capture of what's happening can really speak to a grant panel, or even to an audience or business people that you're asking for support from. It's something that I actually struggle with, taking pictures, because I'm in the moment creating, and I have to assign that work to someone else. Please take pictures, because I know I'll forget. So it's something for all of us, I think, to take note of. But I also wanted to say that I think it's all right to specialize, to say this is the area we are going to focus on, and we're not always going to do the new next best thing. Expanding our audience is one thing, but expanding our repertoire might not be necessary. That's all I needed to say.
Great.
Thanks.
Wonderful comments all. Thank you, Tricia. So if you all would go ahead and update your scores, that would be great. And I also think it might be a good idea to go ahead and take a break. Is everybody interested in taking a break? All right, excellent. Okay, so we'll do just a quick break, meet up here in about 5 minutes would be good. And we'll see you here in a little bit. Great, I see that Roberta is back, everybody's back, so we'll go ahead and get started. We've got 4 more applications to review, and then we'll be done. And the next application for review is East Central Indiana Chamber Orchestra, and our reader is Tricia.
All right. East Central Chamber Orchestra has performances in the community in the fall and the spring, and then one special outreach concert within the year's time. They have demonstrated a great deal of artistic representation by having various conductors and involving, excuse me, performers of various levels. One thing that I was very excited about was just merging the college students with kind of lay people who are playing their instruments at whatever level that they come in at. As someone who is a professional musician, but I don't play in a group like that right now, it just really made me excited that I have friends in high school who do play in groups like that, and this represents something like what they would be involved in. So I liked that, even though it wasn't necessarily at the highest artistic quality, that we're actually seeing the accommodation as kind of part of that idea section by including people who have various experience levels. So let's see. I believe that their conductor has been with them for a period of time now, and it seems like they're starting to build kind of on her work there. And let's see if there's something else. Give me 1 second as I scroll through. I really enjoyed watching the clips that they had shared, and it was clear that they were picking musical selections with high quality content. Some of those performances were definitely going to be challenging to people who weren't playing in a professional organization, but I think that's great, giving them high quality music to take part in. There was another part where they mentioned using partnering with a choral group, and that of course would widen your audience, because every single performer brings in more audience members and outreaches in that way. Their locations for their concerts are in the public schools in the Muncie area. So they're already compliant, ADA compliant, etc. And they have reached out to the music directors in various school systems to connect with the students and invite students and family. One thing I noticed was, or I noted was, I wasn't sure, it was unclear if they had marketing materials that were provided to the students or if it was just kind of word of mouth. I also really liked the fact that they're in public schools and not in performance venues per se, because they're in close proximity to Ball State. I'm sure that there's a crowd of people who attend a lot of things at Ball State. I know I did when I was living in that area. But it's nice that there are these kind of lower key settings where these performances are happening. And also parents and grandparents and families are used to going to the schools for other things. So it's very accessible in that way. Scrolling down. As far as project management, I didn't have any major concerns. Second. I wrote down that they were clearly using experienced leadership. I might have to rewrite this comment. And I would say that contributes to the success of the organization, and that the duties seem diversified and distributed. and so that the group can work cohesively together. Any other comments?
Excellent. Thank you, Tricia. Roberta or Damon? Roberta?
Okay. Hi, Roberta Wong. Loved it. Love what they're doing. Strangely enough, because I have done some grant writing as well, of course, wanted to touch a few things with you guys, East Chamber, East Central, as far as wording and what you're emphasizing for the grant, because I had little bitty red flags start to go off for certain things. Again, love your work that you're doing. So here we go, diving in. Artistic quality, the description focused on a college student target population. I know you have more than that. However, this appears to narrow the actual focus of the organization for the panelists, at least for me. And the red flag that did come off was the RAP Higher Ed IAC states, if the proposed project is credit producing or primarily serving university students and the academic community, then is not eligible. I know you're not doing that, but several times you talked about the Ball State, in the project management section, the cash expenses, all these things, it's the scholarships for the students. It just kept coming up to me as a red flag to not focus on so much, since you have so much other to do. For example, I said it could be solved by including descriptions of a wider range of artists that are involved in this project, and include that in the project description and community management. Again, what you're doing is fantastic. I also found this odd to me, and I don't know if you felt you needed to, for some other reason, add this to this application. In the mission statement, you wrote, the orchestra shall not, except to an insubstantial degree, engage in any activities or exercise any powers that are not in furtherance of purposes of this organization. I found that unclear, and I was wondering if it was unnecessary or if you somehow legally had to put that in. It just didn't make sense for me to put in a mission statement. Okay. And then just small things, for example, in the work samples, you had a typo of like chorale, CHORRAL. I think you meant the chorale, like, ranch chorale. Okay, under community engagement, IDEA. Loved your community engagement. I believe the writing sincerely reflects the timbre and composition of the organization, which reflects authentic, heartfelt purpose, inclusiveness, generosity, musical knowledge, and joy in sharing. However, for me, you could save on the character count, since this is grant writing, by not using the quotes. I would focus on the details of the population served, because you serve so many people and they're so diverse. And it's such valuable work you were doing. And focus on details of the population served, which are likely rich and diverse in race, economic background, physical disabilities, because that's what IDEA is focusing on, right? So be careful of statements that I felt were not supported by data or other means. For example, the South Side of Muncie community is often omitted when performances are planned. I'm assuming you know that because you are working in the community and you're embedded. But as, say, somebody reading it, or the other one was include the opposite side of the community that doesn't often attend events on the Ball State campus. When we make statements like that as artists, we need to understand where the proof is, so that other people can understand why we're saying it. So is there actual community input or data to support these statements? Okay. Found another little typo. It's tiny, but when you put in their late 70s, there was a typo there. I found, for me, the Joseph Rivers letter was wonderful, but I felt it was better included in the artistic quality. Something like that from one artist to another that, mentions the source of it and how complimentary he was. That to me was less about community engagement and more about your own artistic quality. So hold that up. It's fantastic. I think it was in the wrong section. We are missing opportunities to write about your specific populations in need, whether the input to include them comes from their voices. So is the input from them? I know you're not just putting it on them, but I didn't get the sense that it comes from them. Classic and innovative methods to provide them service. To me, missing a little bit. Who are they? What specific steps have you taken in nearly 30 years to improve their quality of life? And I mean, literally, you have to state these things on the grants just to really be clear and succinct. I'm sure you have, but specifics the specifics are requested in the grant proposal, and I felt like I wasn't getting enough detail. What have you learned and expanded upon? You know, it's about answering those questions. I'm sure you've done these things in your groundwork. If no expansion is needed or possible, then include why. Did you have accommodations for hearing impaired or individuals with sensory needs at your concerts? You probably have in 30 years, but there weren't anything mentioned about it. No tools or methods mentioned to measure impact. This is a hard one for artists, but I wanted to know a little bit more about the tools and methods. That becomes more of a statistical thing, a feedback survey thing, all those, you know, it just needs to be more specific to me. The projected participation, I would have liked more detail about the totals. Given your quote, the audience numbers have increased over the last several years. Where does that come from? What's supportive information for that? It would be a stronger proposal to list general tracking methods, adjustment of IDEA narratives, and measurable outcomes. Going on to project management. The project timeline does not include measurements of impact or analysis of the data. Perhaps this needs to be more defined by the IAC, so I'll put that in another section page, but the data is always that sort of sticky thing, well, especially as artists when we're writing. We don't understand sometimes about how much to include detail about the data. Again, the inclusive statements indicate catering toward a higher ed component. Just watch out how much you're catering to that if it's not a higher ed application. For example, when you put to minimize conflicts with other arts organizations and arts events at Ball State, I would actually, that made me think you're catering to Ball State's schedule. I know what you're saying, but it made me think you're catering to them. Maybe that could best be stated to minimize scheduling conflicts with area arts venues. Financials, it's great that your business and individual contributions demonstrated healthy growth. Possible red flag for me as a panelist, the Community Foundation grant secured was $1,500, even though you requested $3,000. Your current $4,000 request mentioned in this proposal for cash income, if there's a shortfall of available assets to cover this in case of lesser funding, I'm wondering about that from the actual 2018-2019 budget. I have a feeling you could pull it off because you've done it for so long, but brass tacks if you're looking at budgets. The itemized project budget, if the project dependent on receiving Community Foundation grant as well, because it looks like you're applying for that, that's listed under cash income, then I would be more comfortable if you should state alternate funding sources or a plan of action in this project narrative should the source not be received, because it is nearly 40% of your project funding. Over 50% of your cash expenses for student scholarships. I think that's wonderful, but please define details in project narrative. Just a little more information so I can feel comfortable. Again, if these are strictly for Ball State University students, then we need to review the IAC guidelines for higher ed definition. You're focusing on the Ball State. I know it's a fabulous thing, but it just red flags me to higher ed, which makes this ineligible. I could personally use more in definition of the $200 for extra musicians, just like another 5 words just to say what that is. Okay, overall, it's fantastic work you're doing. I understood a lot of things of what you're saying because I am an artist myself. But remember, you've got a lot of different people you're approaching for sponsorships and, you know, scholarship funding and everything. So, but congratulations on the work that you do. I'm done.
Great, thank you, Roberta. Damon, did you have anything new to add?
Well, Roberta, you're a terrific business person, I got to tell you. The only thing that I would focus then on is the community engagement and idea narrative. It seems that you've done two things quite well in there. You've detailed different communities that you're reaching, though we don't know much about the makeup of those communities. And you seem to have, and Roberta, you captured this well, you seem to have done a number of things that actually restate more about the artistic quality of the project than truly fulfill this rubric. So that's the only other piece of guidance I have to offer. There's a pretty clear rubric given, questions to answer regarding community engagement and the idea narrative. Hew more closely to that. It gives you a pretty clear guideline on the things we need to know about. Like, for instance, the second question, how will their input be included in the development and planning of the proposed project? Giving us that detail on how you're getting the input to develop your program. What idea strategies and initiatives will be utilized in this project. Again, that's where we need that detail. So with a clear and direct rubric such as this, give us those answers. And then when you've got a story to tell in addition, fine, please do tell us that story. And knowing the number of communities you reach, that's great. That means you probably could pull in quite a bit of detail about the makeup of those communities and better fulfill the rubric that way. And that's all.
Great, thank you, Damon. Roberta?
This is just quick, and it is for the orchestra. So as an experienced grant writer, what happens from what we're looking at is that perhaps you need to take the time to call the IAC and your grant administrator, because they can answer a lot of these questions, or just, you know, see if you're on the right path. See if this is explaining it well, see if it's what they're, not exactly what they're looking for, but are you stating it in a clear manner? Oh, sorry, I'm going to mute. Sorry. Thank you, but that was it.
Okay, great. Thank you, Roberta. Go ahead and update your scores, and then we'll move. Go ahead and start queuing up the next application. Okay, let's go ahead and move forward to the next application, which is Hagerstown Nettle Creek Players, and our reader for this application is Damon.
Okay, thank you. Again, I just want to do a brief restatement of the project summary. Staff of visiting professional actors, designers, directors, and technicians live in Hagerstown for 6 weeks while they rehearse and perform a series of 2 Broadway musicals in a giant circus tent in downtown Hagerstown, tour a production to venues throughout the region and the state, and teach a young actors workshop which provides opportunities to area students ages 9 to 17 to learn and perform. From my own personal experience and background, I can tell you that this is a very old and grand tradition in theater, the idea of summer stock and the idea of tents, traveling, performing anywhere you get the space. So this is, in fact, they have listed 29 years of this project. I gather this is, in fact, the reinvigoration of a summer stock program that was formerly much more active, had a period of dormancy, and is now being reinvigorated. So there's a great legacy there for this sort of project. This group, I believe, is somewhat newer than that, but that doesn't necessarily undercut them in any way. In terms of artistic quality then, as I said, I've got a little bit of past experience myself within summer stock, and so it is two things. It is enriching to the community, but it is also, and very critically, an important development for new actors, young actors, studying actors, etc. So the professional artists recruited at the Unified Professional Theater auditions tend to be those who are still new, getting their feet under them, generally not the highly seasoned professionals, but frankly, that's great. It's growing an artistic culture that otherwise doesn't necessarily have a venue any longer. Summer stock used to be a much bigger part of our artistic life than it is these days. So in terms of artistic quality, I had no great concerns to express. They did mention, for instance, the workshop for students. I would appreciate a little bit more detail added there regarding what students, what communities, what they know about the makeup of those communities, et cetera, to ensure that we are getting the underserved population that we'd like to get. And artistic quality is hinged a great deal on the executive artistic director. I would have liked to know a little bit more too about any others who have an input to the overall artistic vision and what they're achieving here. But nonetheless, as I said, I think there is genuine merit in reinvigorating a form that used to be a much bigger part of our communities. So within the community and idea assessment, it seems to me that what they've provided here, again, it describes a great deal on the range of the talents, the many different organizations that are engaged. So that suggests, okay, there is diversity in the makeup of the group contributing to the project. But I felt like that there was not enough detail on the makeup of the community served, who they're reaching, the input from the community to help shape this mission. Again, much as with the, no, I can't compare applications. I won't compare applications, but there is a clear,
Thank you.
again, a clear rubric given for the questions that we're looking to pursue, the information we're looking to learn about their idea progress. And I don't feel like they gave us enough to show that their makeup reflects the community, their mission reflects what the community wants, that they're understanding that. In terms of project management, as I said, this is a project to basically reinvigorate a form that was formerly more active. The makeup of their board is diverse. It seems to be a fairly large board. So again, a lot of this is focused on the background and skills of the executive artistic director, but I'm confident they have somewhat more structure in place in that, and it would be nice to know a little bit more about the overall structure of the group that executes on this project. And one thing that also did strike me with respect to the itemized project budget, there's mention of a pre-season fundraiser, a key part of their funding, and yet I didn't see anywhere and description of what that preseason fundraiser is. And under in-kind contributions, they make mention of quite a few volunteers and have in their timeline, for instance, the volunteer cleanup, volunteer thank you, etc. In truth, that's also the sort of thing that I believe belongs under in-kind contributions. So something to consider in giving your project funding breakdown. Also, just because I am who I am, taking a look at their statement of financial position, here's something for the IAC. Maybe I'll put this into my comments. Are there any classes or programs offered to arts organizations on financial structure and sound financial practices? I'm just thinking, because I looked at the statement of financial position and the math didn't altogether work for me. And that's all I had with respect to comments.
Thank you, Damon. Roberta or Tricia, anything to add? Roberta?
Hi, so Roberta Wong here. Okay, loved it. Did not realize it was a revitalization necessarily from what you were writing. So that's good to know if you want that to be said. Okay, coming from my artist lens, but also a grant writer lens. Artistic quality, it's a yes for me. I highly feel that, agreeing a lot with what Damon said. Artistic quality and authentic and everything would be just fabulous with summer stock theater. And if you've done it for so long, I think you would know what you're doing. So there is a nice credibility aspect to that. Community engagement, IDEA, had some little bits on here as well. A lot of agreement with Damon on certain things. For example, lots of partnerships, conversations indicate investment, awareness, engagement. This is all excellent. Under A, which is I think part of that, or so under engagement A, which is identify who you will serve. Again, it's what Damon was talking about, answer the questions. I would like to see if there's diversity, including disability, and actually including with teaching artists and children served, disabilities with those. Sensory accommodations, who are your audience? You know, children, families, etc., but who are your audience in respect to the IDEA narratives, inclusion, diversity, equity, access, just more specific details on those, which maybe means you need to do either express your feedback surveys and your data more expressly or to take more of those. Would like more information regarding diversity, accessibility, and actual accommodations for those. Again, you likely have them, but I can't guess. You know, we can't guess. Regarding the evaluation methods, I would like expanded information of those methods used for data collection. I know that's hard when there's so many people and so many volunteers and doing all this wonderful stuff, but make it a priority. This is for your future sponsorships. This is for your own, you know, approaching corporations next time. People in all these other fields need their information and their needs met so that we, you know, if you want to win these grants. Again, I think it's a very strong grant. I love what you're doing. I love a lot of what you did. But these are just coming from my lens of grant writing and all that. Under C for project management, which is, does the financial statement demonstrate capacity to implement? The financial, it's what Damon I think was hitting on too. Financial capacity to implement project is available, but not excellent. However, sponsorships and long-term history, as well as project manager experience and board member occupation and diversity indicate the capacity for attainability. But again, it's exactly what Damon was looking at. We're not getting a bigger fleshed out view of what the specifics are. So you're passionate about your offering, you're doing great work. I need to know more details, right? So other than that, it's a fantastic project, but I just didn't get enough questions answered that literally were asked by IAC in the actual application. Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you, Roberta. Tricia?
I didn't see anything that said this was revitalization. I saw that there were past performances. I just want to make sure we're not thinking about it in that mindset, because it does say 29 years, and if you do 1971 to 2000, that evens out.
I think it was in their marketing materials, actually.
Okay.
Okay, great, thank you. Go ahead and update your scores and then queue up the next application. Okay, we'll go ahead and move on to the next application, which is Main Street Artists, and our reader is Tricia.
Okay, give me 1 second.
Certainly, take your time.
Just saving and pulling it up. Okay, the Main Street Artists have a plan to stage a play telling about the founding and early years and the cultural influence of the Star Piano Company and Gannett, I think that's how it's pronounced, Gannett Records of Richmond, Indiana. This would be an original production, and if I remember correctly, they've already begun meeting and kind of doing planning and read-throughs to develop their script. Yes, it has a centered story in a rural Hoosier enterprise. And I was not aware of this information, so I thought that was kind of an interesting perspective from the artist standpoint to bring information about something to, you know, that has such such impact on Hoosier history. So this is a brand new project. Of course, there was some history in the for the people who are putting the project on, but this would be year one. I viewed the web links and documents, but I wasn't able to see any examples of repertoire. Realizing it's year zero or year one, I would still think there would be something that could be displayed as far as the people who are involved. So it looks nice on paper, but maybe some type of documentation that I could view would be helpful. But I do think it sounds like an interesting theme and would make for an interesting performance. By the way, my calendar is filling up with all these things I need to travel across Indiana to see. So I think that's exciting. All right, so there was a lot written down about Julie Lynn Barber and her past works. But again, having something that I could have looked at or listened to would have been helpful, especially, you know, musicians, we like to listen to things. So as far as community engagement, it seemed like from other works that had been performed by people who were involved, they had a lot of hope that they would have good audiences, but it was hard to tell because it's, of course, a new project, if that would actually come to fruition. You know, we often as artists, we have big ideas and big dreams, and it excites us, but we have to make sure that that information gets out to, you know, people who are going to come and view our material. So involving those actors and behind, you know, stage crew people, and getting the word out is important. Of course, we have to look at marketing materials and things like that. Just a second. I did like the idea that they wanted to reach underserved audiences, but it was hard to tell from what was given exactly what that would be. The traveling show aspect is very intriguing, and of course that allows opportunity for more diverse crowds. And as far as management, the timeline seemed detailed. I didn't see the performance date mentioned for it at the Gannett Mansion, which was mentioned previously, but wasn't on the timeline, just a note. And I was thinking the number of artists could probably have been higher. But again, I don't know details on how many people would be serving on stage and backstage at the same time. So this could be some overlaps. And one more thing, I think. I'm not going to touch on budget because I think that my my colleagues will do that. Okay.
Great, thank you, Tricia. Roberta or Damon, or should I just go straight to Damon?
No, I'm not just a calculator.
Oh, no.
No, as a matter of fact, I had pretty recent experience myself with a developmental project similar to this one, focused on the life and music of Pete Seeger. But having set that aside, because I'm reviewing this application on its merits, got that page? Okay.
Thank you, Damon.
Let's see here. A few comments that I did have to offer. It is a uniquely Hoosier project in nature. That in itself stood pretty well with me in terms of viewing this as a worthwhile artistic endeavor. Certainly something worthy of the Indiana Arts Council's imprimatur. But your point is well made, Tricia, that they're relying on two primaries as their leadership. These individuals have considerable experience, so I should expect that in their marketing materials, it's possible to include a better view of what they have done before. Also, the materials presented here in the application and in their marketing materials focus very heavily on the artists engaged who are leading this and not on their audience. And some view as to what the audience makeup has been or is expected to be would help a good deal, especially since this is a project that is already in development, and as you pointed out, has gone through some group projects already. I should think that they must have some information to provide on who's taken part in the development of this project already, and therefore can give us a better sense of how they've gotten a diverse range of input. That crosses a little bit into the community engagement and idea area, where I had some comments to offer. Such development workshops are valuable to the creative process and valuable for community input and perspectives, but there's nothing detailed for us about how the workshops were organized and run. How did they ensure a diverse viewpoint was included in the workshops? And the assessment of impact, as they described it after the completion of the project, relied primarily on the board and the participants in the performance. And we need to know that, in fact, they've had impact on their audience. So those are things that I think could strengthen their community engagement and idea success. Under project management, there does seem to be an appropriate planning process, an aggressive one, frankly, but underway already. So, more power to them. Financial statement demonstrate capacity to implement the project. That's where I definitely think that there's some liabilities that they could shore up in their cash income. Of course, they've referenced ticket price on 6 festival shows. That reminded me, one other point I wanted to mention. There are a number of references too to the fact that this is a part of the Indie Fringe Festival. Go into this assuming we don't know what the Indie Fringe Festival is, because we need to know how big a program that is, how diverse, what kind of draw that has, etc., to know that their participation in the Indie Fringe Festival will spill over to things like 40 tickets sold for each of 6 shows. And the IHS shows, they've mentioned sponsorship, donations, etc. Again, we need to know that these are realistic, and given that you have done similar projects before and that you're associated with the Indie Fringe Festival, I should hope there is some good basis to understand that, yeah, that anticipated income is real. All right, that's it for me.
Anything to add, Roberta?
Hi, yes, Roberta Wong. Okay. Fascinating and intriguing project. I liked the ideas behind it. But, as also a grant writer, I'm just saying this again because in case they're listening to just their section. A lot of the same things that Trish and Damon were saying, but just to go through. So artistic quality, I loved excellent, thorough, and engaging project description. The purpose is clearly stated. However, reflected throughout the application, I began to wonder or even doubt when you say collaborators versus say supporters, because you've listed the IHS, you've listed Indie Fringe, you've listed your own, the financial, technically company that you're under. Some of these are major players in Hoosierland. So already I'm getting an idea that of what the project quality is and all this, but throughout the application, I'm not seeing any mention of them, especially when you get down to, say, in-kind donations and promotions and marketing and all this. Is the IHS not helping you? Is the Indie Fringe not helping? We need to make sure inclusivity as far as financial backing, even in in-kind donations, that will indicate possible attainability of the project. I would not have called it a collaboration at this point, reading through your narrative, that's all. Again, fantastic idea. I think I would love to see it run. Process of selecting artists. The questions were asked about the process of selection. My comment was projecting quality artistic experience, given the partnerships and the body of experience of personnel listed, is likely, quality. However, there's a great need to update your social media page to reflect the body of work and any current offerings, works in progress, communication. I opened up different parts of it just to see if it would refresh. The latest thing I got was March 2019. It was very thin. You need to use these as aids in establishing your artistic quality. There's not a whole lot going on. Okay, there's no actual process of selection in your application. So no actual process of selection of participating artists was included, although it could be predicted that artistic quality will have quality standards given the strong partnerships. Again, if those were collaborations and there was a standard to be held. And we are referencing the body of experience of the writer and the director, very sound body of experience. If only predicted from the Main Street Artists website and Facebook page, then the quality to me might be in question. If predicted from your association with Nettle Creek players, then I think the quality is great. So artistic documentation. So that does, choose your artistic quality proof materials. with care. Under artistic documentation, this is something to check. This is grant writing. When copy pasted, I copy pasted the link twice, the video link that you've sent for Nettle Creek that was on the artistic materials. It did not open. So it's about double checking all of that stuff. I ended up guessing, I deleted one of the spaces before the word videos, and then it opened. So we need to just always check those links because it's your lifeline for that artistic proof. Even though it is a new project, there's no prior history, the partners have established records of success for artistic and meaningful production value for engaging your community. But I would like to have seen, say, a supporting review, an interview, an article that helps indicate your artistic quality of the author's work or previous production outcomes. I realize this is sometimes not possible, but even an interview, because if you're talking with historical content and you've done some what looks like intriguing historical things before, was there not an interview from someone about it that was put in some sort of publication or on your website or just something? Yeah. Community engagement. I would elaborate on your quote about underserved communities with direct ties to the history of Star and Gannett companies. That is a fantastic thing to do, but I don't know who they are, what the demographic of the population is. I don't know who you're touching. Who you're reaching out to. I don't know whose needs you're serving. You're serving somebody's needs. Yes, you said rural, but do we mean access, resource, economic, educationally challenged, lack of educational resources? What are we talking about? It's fantastic that you're going to do that. I also would like to know how you're going to access that, if it's rural, underserved. More details would express a better picture of whom you're serving. Excellent plans for development workshops. Loved them. How, why, where. Absolutely wonderful. Under B, how will you engage your audience to attend these workshops, performances, when this could be seen as a niche project? It's what one of the other panelists said. It seems like a niche project. It's a valuable project. It's fantastic, but this will cause more challenges possibly for you. And there is no mention of IHS or other partner involved in this marketing or promotion or fundraising. You tap them. If this is a collaboration, they need to come up to the plate with you because this is a great idea. Are you engaging the jazz musician, jazz studies, Indianapolis Jazz Foundation, other related populations who are into jazz? Which would diversify your audience. It would create more audience attendance, possibly. It would likely have a great interest. They would have networks. You mentioned jazz. This is a historical moment. You didn't have them mentioned, so I'm hoping you're going to tap them. Or somehow you want to keep your hold on the project, yes, but it's a huge part of it. Your evaluation methods have good indicators. However, I would need more details regarding evaluation questions or feedback details to indicate there's a sense that inclusion, diversity, equity, and access would be addressed. This is specifically the IDEA section. We need to address that more, flesh it out. Okay. How will you engage specifically, especially the rural or Star Gannett related population, into giving feedback for your project development? Or do you want them to, or was this was not clearly stated? I actually assumed, because it would be great to get their feedback. They're the ones who contain part of the history. I'm assuming you actually already understanding that, but it needs to be stated, right? Because if you just held workshops that are accessible to people who can drive to you and come to you, or who have a prelude of interest to you, then you're not going to get people who are out in rural who have no access to internet, or the idea that, how are you going to canvas that? How are you going to talk to them? Do they want you coming into their geographic to talk to them? These are concerns. If you've done it before, given your history, then state that in your history, I guess, for credibility and all that. So how are you going to engage them if they may not be familiar with your, methods? of development, these wonderful workshops, or if they don't have online or written access, because you mentioned online and written, but they may contain rich and valuable information for your project. They may determine, of course, I think you assume that, how the project's going to end up. So how are you going to get them there? How are you going to get the information? How will you incorporate feedback into forming the final production, and what is your actual measure of success? Because they are talking about in this section about measuring impact. So it's a little foggy for me. And just a tip, knowing this, understanding your measure of success, knowing this will help you determine your actual feedback questions. It might determine even the methods you use. So you have fantastic ideas with this, but we just need more solid details. Under project management, okay. I am concerned, let me double check the comment box, yeah. I was concerned regarding the financial statement and viability of obtaining a $5,000 sponsorship. If this has been achieved, then disregard my statement, but if it were achieved, then perhaps you would have put more details as to where it comes from. Or, you know, it's 5,000 is a big chunk. If the IAC full request is not achieved, I'm concerned that there's no surplus from the Main Street for achieving the project. As stated in financials. I'm concerned there's no mention of collaborative partners assisting in the marketing, funding, fundraising, promotion, because financials reflect need for engaged fundraising and promotional efforts. You're doing a fabulous, really cool thing, but it's gonna need a push. It's gonna need that help for engaged fundraising, promotion, et cetera. The in-kind contributions seemed a little low compared to your cash expenses. And considering the 5 additional collaborators mentioned, if they're truly collaborating, go ahead and tap them. Don't be afraid to ask for help and what's available. They're larger, they have resources, they're established. It's a fabulous thing that you want to partner with them. Marketing promotion figure, you said the full promotion would be $500. That seems low to me, but now that everything is digital, it could be, and social media oriented, this could be possible. I get it, I've done it. But it seems low within the context of your your cash expenses and cash income and all that. So fascinating project. I'm glad that you've already started it. It sounds like it's got roots and legs and all that. I would still continue to reach out. Jazz Foundation, you know, maybe you could get a sponsorship from them. Something that bumps up everything that you're intending. It's got a great idea. I would love to see it fly. Okay, that's it.
Great, thank you, Roberta. And unless anybody has anything to add, let's go ahead and update our scores and queue up the final application. Okay, let's go ahead and move to our final application, which is Main Street, Richmond-Wayne County. And our reader for this application is Roberta. And we are, in the interest of time, if we could try to avoid restating the same comments, that would be helpful. Thank you so much. Go ahead and get started, Roberta, whenever you're ready.
Okay, this one to me is brief anyway. Richmond Meltdown Winter Ice Festival. You guys have got me on that. And artistic quality, quickly, loved it. Wonderfully composed narrative, informative. It answers all the artistic quality questions in detail. It gives credit to one of the founders, which I really liked. Go ahead and mention all the founders, perhaps. I know you just focused on one. I love that there's a connection to the project with that. There was just a couple glitches in spell check or autocorrect, but not a big deal breaker, but you know, of course, check it. But yeah, fantastic artistic quality, well proven, well stated, well explained. Community engagement, IDEA, loved it, yes. Vibrant, engaging, and thorough grant writing. It was model grant writing to me. You've covered all the bases. Tiny things. Could you explain more if downtown location is easy to access? Because you're trying to draw people into an area you said that needs revitalization on, not revitalization, but to gain more, you know, activity. But especially with something so big, could you please tell me if there's easy access for people with mobility issues, if there's shuttles like at Penrod Arts Fair or something? I mean, when things get so big, it actually, I might avoid it if you can't have like an easy way to get there. The writing paints an incredible picture of service to community and willingness to improve. You expand on community impact, joyful engagement, generosity, inclusion. Loved it. Project management. Well thought out, thorough, informative, great work gaining sponsorships, grants, looks like reasonable charge for vendors. That was really it. Loved everything about it. Want to go see it. That's it. Real short and sweet.
Great, thank you. Tricia or Damon, did you have anything to add?
I'll add one point under community engagement and idea. Point number 2, how will their input be included in the development and planning of the proposed project? They've cited in particular the diverse group of committee members that have a touch on varying parts of the community. I won't read the entire thing. That's good, but that's your committee. Do you have any other way of ensuring that you've reached out to the diversity of the community for their input? I would point out also, though, that the added advisors for the accessibility of non-English speaking, that's a great addition. Very glad to see that. And let's see here. Under project management, home run. You've got what you need to get this done. That's all.
Great, thank you. Any other comments? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and update your scores. And this concludes the Region 5 Arts Project Indiana Arts Commission meeting in June. If you have any questions, please contact your. And Brett, I go ahead and any of our guests are welcome to leave. And I asked our panelists to go ahead and stay for just a few minutes longer. Brett, if you can go ahead and have our guests, go ahead and put them back in the waiting room if they haven't left already. Thank you.
All of our guests are out, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen and end the recording.
All right, great. Thank you. I really appreciate that, Brett. I'm going to queue up my notes for really solid review. I don't think that anybody could possibly feel like